Okay, welcome everyone. It's about 12:35. We have a few more people I think are going to join us. If you can just give us just a couple of more minutes, and then we will get started. It's a full program. Thank you all for taking time today out of your busy schedules to join us. We hope that you can walk away with some nuggets of practical, concrete information, actionable items that you can go back to your offices and implement right away. We know as practicing attorneys, and anyone in a private practice is a business owner, and whether or not you have clients is a whole different question. So we're going to talk a lot about that over the next hour or so. Oh my, here we go again. I can't move the slides. Oh boy, okay. Brian, it just went out on me. I can't move the slides. Love technical challenges. Brian, are you there? Okay. Here we go. So thank you everyone for joining this. I'm going to get us started so we can be respectful of your time. My name is Kimberly Rice. I am President and Chief Strategist of the Business Development Advisory Firm of KLA Marketing Associates. I've been working with and for law firms and lawyers for over 26 years exclusively. I started when I was 10, and I love working with law firms and lawyers. I am very passionate, particularly about working with women lawyers who experience so many more challenges in building a prosperous business than their male counterparts. I have recently published a book that's available on Amazon. If you have a copy of the digital copy of the slides, then you can see the name of the book is Rainmaker Roadmap, a step-by-step guide to building a prosperous business. It is available on Amazon and Kindle. I mention this because I've taken 26 years of working in-house at 3 Metro Philadelphia firms at the highest level, Chief Marketing Officer, being at the management table, then starting KLA Marketing in 2008. I've taken a lot of what we have developed as now proven methodologies to building a prosperous business and have incorporated it all in this book, this Rainmaker Roadmap book. And so it is a very granular roadmap and blueprint, if you will, of building a prosperous practice. Also, you may know me by I'm editor-in-chief for ALM's Marketing the Law Firm. It's a national legal marketing newsletter, both digital and print, and we tap the thought leadership of marketing partners, lawyers, and legal marketers from around the country. So that's a lot of what I have been spending every day of my professional life doing. We work with solo firms up to about 75 attorney firms, not only in strategic planning and helping law firms and lawyers to identify their target market audience, but the actual steps they need to take day by day to build a prosperous business, to grow that and sustain that. And in the world of the digital world that we live in, with most of us having ADD, HD because of so much data coming at us, there's too many choices. Sometimes there's too many solutions that lawyers, quite frankly, don't know what to do with all of those. We make that very organized and focused to the benefit of the growth of your practice. So let's move on and get started here with the program. One of the things, if you've ever attended any of the programs that we do across the state, we're very involved in a number of the bar associations. I say frequently that there really are 3 pillars to a prosperous business. We've learned this over many decades. One is relationship building. Number 2, reputation enhancing, and contact management is the third of the 3 pillars. Each of those pillars, because, if you think about your legal practice, the way that you attract and grow your business is through identifying and cultivating and nurturing new contacts, growing your network, growing your referral sources, and that takes very focused relationship building tactics. So we're going to talk about that and the different ways to do that. Secondly, the reputation enhancing. You as a legal technician can be the best at what you do in the particular area or areas of law that you practice, but if the right people don't know about that, of how you deliver these unique services and differentiate yourself from your competitors, then your business is not going to grow at the pace that you would want it to, or that it needs to. So there are specific marketing tactics that we use for our clients to help support, the great work that they're doing and helping their clients be successful, preventing problems, capitalizing on opportunities, or protecting them and advocating for them on some level. Again, it's about increasing visibility in your selected marketplace. Number 3, the contact management is related to the relationship building, in that all those networking events or the bar events that you may attend and participate in, whether you speak in front of them or you are an attendee among the group, there are certain marketing tactics that are really critical to getting and staying connected with your growing network. And there's a whole host of marketing tactics that we know that, if implemented consistently and persistently over a period of time, will help you build traction in your marketplace to not only be recognized as the expert that you are, but also will help further the relationships that are needed in order to make those client retentions. So one of the things we talk a lot about on an individual attorney basis is the importance of building a personal brand. I do a lot of teaching, and most of the time lawyers don't really know what a personal brand is. It is different than a reputation. I like to refer to Jeff Bezos, who's one of the founders of Amazon, or maybe the founder of Amazon, and I included it in here in the slide. And that is a personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. And so we hope that it is a positive, what they say. But one of the things that we talk a lot about that is very productive in developing the reputation at the same time that you're developing the personal brand, if you consider the answer to the question, how do you want to be regarded as the go-to person or the go-to lawyer in your chosen area of practice? So, for example, if you are a labor and employment attorney on the management side, your audience, one of your targeted audiences are human resources professionals. And so, if you're not involved in a professional association like Shroom, for example, they're full of those organizations are full of human resources professionals and CFOs, some business owners, depending on the size of the business. You want to develop a reputation and a personal brand that if a company is having, if an employee has made an allegation or a complaint about another supervisor for sexual harassment, you want to be the person that they're thinking of to contact to help them deal with that quagmire of legal issues. So it's, how do you want to be regarded and perceived in the audience, in the market space that you're occupying? Never more than today, there's more competition in the legal services space than there ever has been from the beginning of time of the legal services world. And compounded to that is that we live in an extraordinarily noisy world. There's so many touch points of communication that lawyers are required, if for no other reason than survival, to cut through all the clutter in order to gain the attention of prospective clients, referral sources, and even, existing clients to expand that work. So one of the things that we talk about a lot is how can lawyers communicate their personal brand across all platforms and in front of all the audiences. That doesn't mean all audiences at random, but very, very focused selection of where you are kind of hanging out. So one of the things that we say is, where do your clients go, or where do your prospects go? Where do they congregate, whether it's a professional association or at conferences for those things, or wherever that may be, and that's going to be very different per practice area, then that's where you need to be. So not only that requires in-person appearances as an attendee and a participant, but then also further and a more high impact is as a leader and a speaker or an author in front of those targeted audiences. So that's part of the platforms. The other piece of the platforms is leveraging the technology. As difficult as some attorneys regard building a practice, because of course you did not learn an iota about that in law school, it really has never been easier than today because there is so much technology that's available, much of it at no cost, to hop online and to develop a robust reputation online, which builds and boosts your personal brand. So for example, on your law firm's website, you have a website profile. About 98% of the time that we work with law firm clients, we take a deep dive into those profiles, and they are usually upside down in connection with the content that is reflected is more about the attorney and his or her accomplishments and accolades than, and at the bottom, of say 6 paragraphs, it may say, Ms. Smith concentrates in commercial real estate and commercial litigation, but it doesn't really tell how Ms. Smith, the lawyer, helps clients. And, a piece of information that we know is true in our web development projects is the attorney profile is the #1 page that is visited on websites, because when people meet you at networking events or anyhow they come in contact and have been exposed to you in a professional or even a personal setting, they're going to hop on your website to check out your profile. And the answer that you need to provide on your attorney website profile is specifically, how do you help clients? That is the question that they want to see represented at the very top of an attorney website profile. How are you helping clients? Everything else, that's fine if you went to Yale or Harvard or wherever you went. It's wonderful that you're a super lawyer, but to the layperson and even to the GC or a business owner, they want to know how you're going to help them. And that is huge when it comes to developing a personal brand. How are you different from all the other attorneys in your area of practice that they could select to work with? So, having a very buttoned up, concisely written, and presented website profile should be a tremendously high priority for every single lawyer. My firm, KLA Marketing, we work closely with law firms to make sure that they fit that paradigm, to make sure that they're responding to that question in their website profile. Then if you go to the next step, the next platform are the social media channels that a law firm and lawyers need to be on. We have constant resistance to lawyers not wanting to be on social media. They don't understand social media. They say they have no time for social media. We get all that. We get that you're very busy. Our philosophy is lawyers, prosperous business owners who are lawyers, and if you are in private practice, you are a business owner, you have two primary responsibilities. Number one, to be to deliver extraordinary service to your clients, and number two, to be the face of your firm. Those are two jobs that you and only you can do for your area of practice and your business. Everything else can be delegated or outsourced. So we work with our clients, starting with the premise that Google owns the internet and we have to play by their rules. And one of the things that Google insists upon, if you want to gain any ranking level on the internet, is that you must add regular and original content to your website and social media channels. So one of the things that we say to our clients is that we don't want you to write anything. We will write it in the marketing language. You can approve it, and we repurpose content all the time for our clients, blogs, websites, profiles, articles, etc. So we know how to leverage all those things, so you don't have to personally spend the time on it because you're focusing on the two responsibilities of your position. But in doing all those activities, and we call those passive marketing activities for our clients, it helps to gain traction on the web, on the internet, as well as to build your personal brand. And this happens over time. It doesn't happen in a week or two, but we have seen clients have great success. So referring back to the title of our seminar today, our webinar today, if I can get this to go back, and that is how to evoke the secret sauce to build a prosperous business, the 6 mission critical steps. I'm going to talk at great length about the secret sauce as we move along, and this is, the secret sauce is proprietary to KLA Marketing Associates. It is what we have found and worked with over time to be a proven methodology of growing law firms, growing lawyers' practices. And so what we're presenting here today are very granular, nuts and bolts steps that you can take. I just talked about, how important it is for you to make sure you have a tip-top, well-written, very concise, to answer the question, how are you helping clients in your website profile? So perhaps today after our webinar, you can print out your website profile, take it home, mark it up, and look at it through the eyes of a potential client, because that's really the only eyes that matter. This is not ultimately about us as services provider. It's about attracting clients, attracting referral sources to our expertise. So now we're working in investing in yourself. Oftentimes, as part of building a personal brand, we overlook, I think, as busy private practicing attorneys, the importance of showing up in a professional context, that you look the part. And what I'm saying is not necessarily that you have to have a Brooks Brothers suit, but you need to be dressed professionally. You need to present yourself neat, professional, that you would garner the trust and the respect of the title that you hold as a lawyer and an advocate for your clients. When I was in-house, and even now, sometimes I see lawyers who have taken the Friday casual casual Friday a little bit to the extreme, and they get a little bit, in my view, sloppy because they may not be seeing clients. But, you know, if you run out to Starbucks and then you run into somebody that you used to work with at another firm, and they see you in your yoga pants, that just doesn't set a good precedent to presenting and growing a personal brand. You know, so to that end, I just encourage everyone to, you know, think about, you know, your role as an attorney, what you're trying to accomplish. If you have your own firm or you work in a firm, that every touch point that people have with you, you know, how is that either supporting or detracting from building your personal brand? So it is very important, the power, I talk about the power of professional presence. And, you know, I have on many of these things, I have a extensive digital library that I'm be delighted to, you know, after the call, if you want to reach out to me, to share tip sheets, checklists, etc., on probably about every point that I'm making in these slides that may help you think about any of these issues more clearly and how they may directly impact you to make a positive improvement in something that you're doing that you can maybe leverage a little bit more, or that you're not doing and you're not quite sure how to approach. We can certainly help you with that. But one of the things that I know from all the speaking and working with lawyers over 26 years is the psychological side of the practice of law is very difficult. It's very demanding. Women have many more challenges than men in a vast array of issues. And one of the things that I speak specifically to women about, but I'm not to exclude the men, is taking a checkup of your confidence levels. Oftentimes this is an issue in your first years of practice. But I've certainly coached lawyers who are midway through, you know, say in their late 40s and 50s, and I've coached lawyers who are in their 60s and 70s. So there really is no stopping point in which confidence or the lack of confidence can be a deterrent and a stumbling block in helping you grow your practice. Again, it's an extremely demanding world in legal services, and it's so incredibly demanding of your time, and can be all-consuming. So I made that statement as an encouragement for you to kind of just do a check-in with yourself, and you know, could you use some confidence-building exercises, or, you know, a third-party observer or some coaching to kind of work some of those nits out. Something to be aware of. And then, you know, oftentimes I see that particularly young lawyers or new lawyers that may be in the firm environment that have decent numbers of resources, you know, meaning that they have paid professionals on the team or their law firm that are in a position to help the younger lawyers to, you know, learn whether it's computer programs or different software packages that maybe they didn't know previously. The younger folks really pick those things up quickly. But I would just, you know, challenge you to be cognizant of the resources that are available to you. If you're a solo practitioner or you're, you know, are in a very small firm, don't overlook the value and the vast array of resources that the bar associations have, not only at the county level, but certainly at the state level. There are tons of resources that can help you with whatever you may be struggling with in, developing your practice and attracting clients to it. So we want to talk about the first pillar, the relationship building pillar of building a practice. And this is very, very important because, as great as the reputation enhancing is and the contact management must be, there is the art of relationship building. And so I've listed a couple of checkpoints that I'm a great believer in and have seen tremendous benefit from, not only myself and my business, but also scores of clients that we've worked with over the decades, is having that give to get mentality, that it's not all about you personally, but how, as you build your network, how you can connect with others, not only for yourself, but for others in your network who are doing the same thing of trying to build a prosperous business and or legal practice. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind in relationship building initiatives, and those usually take the face of targeted networking. Oftentimes we see lawyers who feel like they're networking, but they're, quote, not getting anything out of it. Most likely, if I had 10 minutes with that person, one of the things that seems to be a common thread over all these decades is many lawyers mistake the relationship building tactic of networking as the following. Well, I go in, I have lots of business cards, I hand them out, and no one ever calls me. That is the exact opposite of what you would want to do. So the ideal scenario is the following. There may be a scheduled networking event. If you work in a particular industry, which is highly impactful, so I'm just going to say the construction industry. So for example, if you're a commercial real estate attorney in the construction industry, then there are many, many professional associations at which real estate investors, developers, brokers, architects, all those services around the construction industry, there's professional associations for all of those. You would want to go to those in order to get in front of qualified targeted prospects. So for example, if you register to go to a networking event in one of those commercial real estate professional associations, the number one thing you'd want to do is to see if you can request the registration list. The reason you want to do that is to see who's going to be there, who's going to be attending that event, perhaps that you already know. So at least you can expect to see a friendly face or two. The second thing you want to do is to consider, if you haven't already, how do you want to describe yourself that's in alignment with the personal brand that you are developing. So we often say that that's the 30-second elevator pitch, or the introduction for yourself. I think even now you not only need to have a 30-second elevator pitch, but you need to have a 10-second elevator pitch, because people have such a limited amount of attention because we're so bombarded and overwhelmed with information. So I encourage our clients to start out a new introduction as I help. I help clients develop projects. I help my clients prevent XYZ problems. I help solve my clients' liabilities, or whatever it may be. But if you start out with a client-centric statement that positions you as a helper, i.e. a service provider, it can be highly impactful, memorable, and compelling. So in that context of relationship building and networking, it's about the other person. It's really not about you, which is why you need to have your understanding what your role in the relationship building process is, it's about focusing on others. We list and talk about when you're engaged in a social or networking situation, it's about asking and being interested in your speaking partner than being interesting. Oftentimes we all love to talk about ourselves in general, that if you are speaking with someone, you want to learn more about that person so you can understand what his or her business is, what their challenges may be. So you ask, I say this oftentimes, you ask open-ended questions. For example, something as a great icebreaker, you're going into a networking event. So what brings you here this evening? So you can kind of see where that person's coming from. And if you understand the rationale for them even attending the event, then you can build on that. If that person happens to be a commercial developer, oh, that's really interesting. What's the scope of your business, or what's the scope of your reach? Is it New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, whatever that may be. You want to look at all times when you're speaking to other people, while you're asking them questions to try to uncover and identify commonalities, you want to be thinking how you can connect yourself to their world that is becoming clear with the questions that you're asking, and then you have the back and forth. And so it's very important as far as targeted networking, and we teach that, if you're in a networking situation, you really never want to spend more than 5 to 7 minutes with someone, because you want to have an opportunity to get and basically work the room. And so one of the things we talk about when I was talking about professional presence is presenting yourself as the trained professional that you are, understanding the power of professional presence. And it even starts with the handshake. Oftentimes when we go in to teach business development training in law firms, we talk about the proper way to shake a person's hand. Men and women have different handshakes. I'm sure the women of the group here can identify that when they go to shake a man's hand, oftentimes it feels like a limp fish. And you hear from the men, well, I don't want to crush her hand. Well, there's a proper way to shake a hand, and that is basically you want to have the two thumbs locking and basically holding each other's hand for 2 pumps, and then you disengage while you're looking at that other person, because so much of what's being said and not said is through nonverbal communication. One of the things that we talk about is in the context of communication, that if you think about communication as a pizza pie, 100%, that'd be in a full circle, 65% of how we communicate is non-verbally. So it is the eye-to-eye contact, how we stand, what our posture says, our facial gestures, what we do with our hands. If we're folding our hands in front of us, that's not sending a positive message. And how many times have we heard that we all have one opportunity to make the best first impression? So, if you're not having a great day, if you're low on energy, be in tune with what's going on with you before you go and insert yourself into a networking environment, because you may meet someone or more than one someone that's going to be maybe their first and lasting impression of you, and you need to make it a positive one. So oftentimes we work with lawyers, and they really do not enjoy networking. They don't know what to say. They're very uncomfortable. They think that they should be asking for business in a networking event. I was coaching a lawyer, actually the managing partner for a firm in suburban Philadelphia, and he said, I really hate asking the question. So I said, what is that question, Peter? And he says, well, I hate going up to someone and saying, so how can I get your business? And I said, well, I'm going to make your day, because I'm going to give you a pressure release valve that you never, ever, ever should ask that question again, ever, at a networking event. networking events, targeted networking events, and socializing with other people that could, excuse me, could be directly responsible for retaining you for your services and or refer you for your services. Pardon me for a moment, I need to take a drink of tea, that is, to clear my throat. That when you're meeting those people, it is the beginning point, the starting point of building rapport, just like you would, in meeting anyone else in the other aspects of your life. It's just scratching the surface. Then if there is a chemistry, if you feel some connection with this person, if you ask a few questions and there is some commonalities, if there's a prospect that you could help this person in some way, whether as in a client matter or some other way, then you ask for that business card. Oftentimes I teach our clients that you don't want to focus so much on giving out your card as you do on requesting others' cards or asking for others' cards, because if you are a savvy networker, and after this webinar you should be much more savvy than perhaps you were before the webinar, is that if you take the card, you know that you're going to follow up in a shorter, that you're going to follow up, period. Most people don't follow up at all. My personal practice is I try to follow up with anyone that I've met through a networking situation within 48 hours. Why? Because we are so bombarded with so much information, and the emails continue to fly in that, we could be yesterday's news before it's even yesterday. So developing a productive marketing or networking mindset is not that I'm going to go there to get clients. There's no one marketing initiative, not one, that you should expect to, quote, get a client. Why? Because clients, as all of us, want to work with people who they know, like, and trust. And that cannot happen in one random potential chance meeting. It takes time. It takes cultivation and nurturing those contacts, whether it's referrals or prospective clients. And so if we develop that mindset, that networking mindset, that is the starting point, get the business card, follow up, connect continuously with and for others. Giving to get, engaging in that law of attraction will get you further than, coming in hard and heavy. So some of the best practices that we talk about in networking, I've mentioned one of them, the engaging with open-ended questions, which means questions that cannot be answered with a yes or no. What brings you here this evening? What area of law do you practice in? Where are you coming from? Are you a member of this organization? What do you find valuable about this organization? How do you spend your days? What's the most challenging part of your business? Because the questions that you're asking, not only do you want to seek and identify commonalities, so that helps you build rapport with a person or a potential client, but then also you're investigating or exploring potential needs triggers that we're going to talk about. Every area of legal practice has what we call needs triggers. There are triggers for your services, and most attorneys don't know what they are, but once they get in tune to that, then they know how to answer or ask better questions. Finally, about networking is it's imperative to be an active listener. We all have experienced those people that we're networking with, we may be talking to them, and they're looking over our shoulder or our head, or their eyes are darting around. They're not fully in tune with us. That can't be you if you're going to be a prosperous business owner and a prosperous rainmaker. You must make every person that you engage with as if they are the only person in the room at that time, and you're completely focused on them, because it's not about you. It's about them. It's about getting to know them. And so we say, turn off the channel, what's in it for me, WIIFM, because it's about getting to know the person. So once you've engaged, and once you regularly engage in targeted networking, You want to make sure you have a system in place to mind and grow your network. That if you are a member of some sort in an organization, whether it's the Bar Association, which is great for some practices, like, for example, personal injury lawyers get most of their business from other lawyers who do not practice personal injury. But for more B2B lawyers, the bar can always be, the Bar Association can always be a source of building collegiality and camaraderie within the practice of law. But the B2B practicing lawyers, business to business, their clients primarily will be business people, business owners, CFOs, CEOs, and general counsel who may not be involved or as involved with the Bar Association. And of course, there are professional associations for in-house legal counsel. There's plenty of those that that may be a good kind of a hunting ground for you. But following up with the networking partners very consistently, connecting others in your network. I love to be a super connector with people in my network that I know that could help one another, that could help build strategic alliances, etc. And then connecting with them, once you've connected with them via email, and it was a treat to meet you. I enjoyed learning about XYZ. I felt that there may be synergies in our practice. Would you like to grab a coffee in the next few weeks, throw out some dates, or at the moment I'm available on XYZ. I hope this aligns with your schedule. If not, please throw out a few alternate dates so we can make this happen. I have, and I encourage my lawyer clients to have these email templates, so you don't constantly have to reinvent the wheel. That is a productivity tool because we only have so much time in the day. I keep my email templates in an email folder, so I can click on it, customize it, and send it out in less than 30 seconds. So if you're meeting 10 or 20, 30 people and you want to follow up with those, that's a chunk of time which you're most likely going to delay for another time when you don't have, when you're not so busy, and then we find that time never comes. So it's so imperative to develop the systems to your business development program. So we talk about the creating easy follow-up plans. That is a challenge. Keep them close by for the typical follow-up email template. Keep them close by. Like I said, I keep mine in an email folder in my Outlook email program. So in developing the networking mindset is part of the entire developing a marketing mindset. It's so amazing to me working with lawyers that they don't really always have a handle on, well, where do I get clients? Well, and I always ask them, tell me the source of your client base. Where does it come from? How do they find you? How do you attract them? Oftentimes lawyers just don't know. And so one of the things that we try to sensitize them to is to be more aware of basically your universe. You have your law practice and perhaps your office, your law firm. If you have a law firm, of more of attorneys than you, then there should be cross-selling opportunities. If it's not a boutique firm like just all workers' comp or SSI or estate and elder law or one of those boutique practices, but it may be a multi-service law firm, that there are cross-selling opportunities. But keeping your antenna up, your radar up, and looking and being aware of opportunities that may exist all around you if you're just paying attention. They are everywhere. So, for example, I'll give you a case study. We have a client who runs an estate and elder law boutique firm. And we have, there's two people that we work primarily with. One is a middle-aged male who does a lot of estate and Medicaid planning, Medicaid planning. Then we have a younger female, and she's is the mother of a young family. And so one of the things that we have her focusing her practice on is getting in front of mothers of young families, because we know statistically that mothers make most of the purchase decisions for their family. So we work with this particular attorney to get her in front of those groups to talk about how imperative it is for families to have the mechanisms of the estate planning documents, the will, the powers of attorney documents in place as a way to love and protect their family should anything happen to one or both of those parents and those children are rendered orphans or they don't have caretakers. For every area of practice, there are targets. So we are teaching and training this particular young attorney that when her friends and her family's friends and their friends and family and her other associates and other contacts she has, when they are having their families, that she requests that they refer her to these young families so she can emphasize the importance of having those documents in place. So estate planning, for example, is just not for older people. Of course, we all are going to get older, God help us, but for also to protect your family and your children, your minor children. So for every area of practice, there is triggers, as I'm saying, and I'll share more about that. But training yourself and developing, I say, the marketing muscle, that marketing is not an event, it's a mindset and a lifestyle. Many years ago, or some years ago, I was working with a labor and employment partner at one of the law firms at which I was in-house chief marketing officer. He told me that his son was involved in Little League ball, and so he was on the sidelines of the Little League fields many, many Saturdays, I guess in the fall. And one particular Saturday, he was standing there watching his son do his thing, and there was another father standing next to him, as there would be, as groups of parents standing and watching their children, and they just struck up a conversation. And my client, I'd been coaching and training him to, ask the open-ended questions, and through several back and forth and, cheering their sons on, my client learned that the fellow he was speaking with was a CEO of a very fast-growing company that had no employment policies or no employment manuals and needed those desperately. Plus, they were looking to merge with another company. And so the client that I worked with worked in a multi-service firm. He invited one of the business partners. They took this fellow out to lunch, and it ended up resulting in numerous legal retentions, or retention for multiple legal matters, all because they were watching their son on the sideline, their sons on the sidelines of a Little League field. So it's developing that mindfulness of how you can take advantage or take leverage opportunities that are around us all the time. So one of the things that I'm constantly surprised about is the lawyers. I often ask them, do your friends and family know what you do? The answer usually is they know I'm a lawyer. I'm like, but do they know what would be the trigger for your services? And the answer has 100% always been no, they don't know. And I'm like, well, what could you tell them that they could help you? Because we find that most people want to help all of us, but we have to make it really easy for them because we all live very, very busy lives. So if there are a couple buzzwords or a couple of scenarios that are triggers for your services, then, you really should share that with as many people as possible. And one way to do that, in addition to in person, just in the context of your relationships, is to deal with that on your digital marketing, writing blogs, etc. So I want to be mindful of our time here today, but in developing the marketing mindset, developing the discipline of targeted networking, investing in yourself, and making sure that you're up to snuff with the power of professional presence, and you are proactively developing your personal brand. And you are, whether you realize that or not, every time you have a touch point with someone, that is part of what, developing your personal brand. So you want to control the message of what that is, how you're going to be spoken about and referred to as a professional. But one of the areas of high anxiety that we see with our clients and have always seen with our clients over 26 years is actually asking for the business, asking for the business or closing the deal. We refer to it as perfecting the close. First of all, it can't come out of left field. Like if you were at a networking event, and all of a sudden out of the blue you say, so how can I get your business? That's random, it's offensive, you're not going to have a positive result. The perfecting the close comes as a natural output of the relationship building that you invest in to learn about the prospect, as appropriate, his or her business, what those challenges may be. And one of the ways that you find that out is by asking those open-ended questions that are appropriate for that prospective client's business, if they're in business, or if they're an individual consumer client, what is a trigger for your services? And once you understand and you kind of have that aha moment for what that is, then everything else, it flows from that. So for example, if you're a matrimonial attorney, and you're working with, you've been referred to, a prospective client by a family counselor, and this person comes in for a consultation, maybe they've not, maybe they're considering changing the spousal custody or the spousal alimony or, property settlement agreement, or I'm sorry, if they're not yet separated, but there's some need before them retaining you, then you want to key in on kind of where they are, what are their needs, and how can you help them in that. So the mind shift of not selling your services and how qualified you are and how you've done this, that, and the other, keep in mind that competency is the cost of admission. Your referral source, the family counselor or the counselor, would have never referred you in the first place if he or she did not trust your level of competency. So the focus must shift from you to the prospect. I have scores and scores of case studies of how attorneys just blow it when they get into whether we call it beauty contest or a pitch, a meeting, or they're having a complimentary consult, and most of the dialogue is dominated about where they went to school and that they're a super lawyer, or I worked at this firm and that firm and I've done this and that. The client doesn't care. They only care about how you can help them, which is why you must understand what the need triggers are for your particular areas of practice and what it is that you can help them solve, the problems that they need solving, or they need some type of protection, or you're advocating for them. And that takes practice. I mean, once you understand what those need triggers are for your areas of practice, then sometimes you need to practice languaging, and that can be a very valuable resource and exercise. So to review, because we're coming up on 1:30, to review, very important to remember that there are 3 pillars to a prosperous business: relationship building, reputation enhancing, contact management. Investing yourself in building relationships that you evolved from people liking, knowing, and trusting you. There's no amount of, it's priceless of how we develop trust. It takes time, multiple touch points. Building your personal brand. Well, how do you want people to speak about you and refer to you when you're not in the room? For what do you want to be referred to as the go-to person? Showing up in the professional persona as your, all the years of your professional training would reflect positively on that. Networking, finding those places that you're going to be in front of qualified, targeted prospects. Then, introducing yourself, learning more about them, focusing on asking open-ended questions, and being, actively listening, being more interested in your speaking partner than trying to be interesting. They'll learn all they need to learn about you from that website profile, which you're going to go back and review to make sure that answers the question, how do I help clients specifically in non-legalese narrative. So in taking all of those principles, which are very nuts and bolts, that you could go back to your office today after our webinar and start acting upon them, then it is the rinse and repeat. And that's where the secret sauce comes in that I'm going to speak about in just a moment. It is staying focused on getting in front of the, quote, right people, the people who could directly retain you for your services and or refer you. Oftentimes we see lawyers end up in networking situations that there's no chance that there's going to be anybody in that room that could retain that person. They're not fishing in the right pond. Sometimes it takes, stepping out and looking in. We help our clients do that all the time. Trying to differentiate yourself by your uniqueness. What differentiates you from someone else that practices the same area of law? I can tell you that if you engage in some of the principles that we're talking about today, that in and of itself will help distinguish you and your uniqueness, because in networking situations we know that people regularly do not follow up. And so having the systems is so important. And then never, ever quitting. So here, the secret sauce, it is a proven methodology that I've developed over 26 years, proven. If you follow this, the secret sauce, which means engaging in the principles that I've just introduced and discussed, if you engage this consistently, persistently, the massive amounts of actions, which is developing the personal brand, engaging in meaningful targeted networking, following up as you need to do, getting and staying connected with the prospects and your clients on a regular basis, developing a robust online reputation by adding original content. You don't necessarily need to write it. We don't want our clients writing anything. It's not a good use of their time. But these are the meat and potatoes of developing a prosperous practice, but you have to do it consistently, regularly, not in fits and starts or random acts of marketing. Because as you're doing this, you are sowing the seeds for relationships, for your developing and enhancing your reputation. So by doing that, you're sowing the seeds in the right pond. You're fishing in the right pond. Sowing those seeds is all we have control of. So you want to develop that top-of-mind awareness by sowing the seeds in the right field, nurturing them, watering them, minding that field figuratively. So when the time is right for those prospects, they're thinking about you. They're going to pick up the phone and call you and say, I spoke to you at this XYZ event. It may have been 6 months. It may have been a year. It may have been 3 years ago. But they remembered you because you are getting in front of them consistently, either through e-blast on a regular basis, in social media, you're linked in with them, you're sending out original blog content on a regular basis that has impact to them. It's not legal content. It's something that's going to be timely and topical that they're going to care about. Those are the steps to developing a prosperous business. I've seen it. I've done it. We have clients that this is what they followed, that they've been wildly successful. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. You can contact me. I'd be happy to help you in any way possible to provide additional resources. But I thank you for your time. I trust that this has been valuable for you, that you can now take some of these principles that we've just spoken about, and you can go back to your offices and apply them immediately. Thank you so much.